everybody, welcome back to Rework It. Hi Jesus, how's it going?
Hey, Kladi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. So, good morning everybody, or good afternoon, depending on which side of the world you are watching from. And Sus, tell us which side of the world you actually are right now.
I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. How about you?
I'm in Manchester, UK, and for those who don't know us, maybe we should do a little intro. We never really do an intro about ourselves, so I'm gonna let
We
you
did,
start.
we Oh, great. Well, I wasn't prepared for that, but I just assume everyone knows us. But in case you don't know me, my name is Jesús Ramirez. I'm most well known for my YouTube channel, the Photoshop training channel on YouTube, where I teach Photoshop. But I've been a professional graphic designer slash graphic artist for, oh man, I don't want to date myself, but like over 15 years, almost 20 now at this point. I'm not counting anymore. How about you, Claudia? Who are you?
Fantastic.
Tell
Who
us who
am
you
I?
are.
I'm an Italian designer based in Manchester, UK, where I have a lot of fun running a design studio called Printmysoul. And also, most importantly, I spend a lot of my time here with this wonderful community at Adobe Live. In fact, today, after the show, we'll also be hosting the talented Kieran Lewis. So stay tuned because the day at Adobe Live is busy and fun filled pretty much every day besides the weekend, I think.
Yeah, and even on the weekend, you can watch the replays. There's a ton of content in there in case you haven't gotten to it yet.
Yes, and let's actually start to say hello to the chat. I can see Ferry Utomo in the chat, Roy, Michelle, Team, nice to see you, Carol.
The Renaissance man, Tim.
Yes, nice to see you. Very, very lovely, Caroline, General Kenobi, Dorina. Thank you so much for joining us. So I guess we just did an introduction. The majority of people know who they are. My son is there, Valdair. Nice to see you, RB. What's up? Fantastic. So a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. I'm just going to show real quick how to submit your work. If you haven't done it yet, this is the time to do it. Don't say later because then time goes by and we want to really see your work, especially all these lovely names that we recognize in the chat. I want to see your work. Team, why don't submit your work as well?
Oh man. Carol said you're still a kid, Jesus. I don't know. In 2022, I'll be 40, so I don't know if that qualifies as a kid.
Sorry, I was drinking coffee clearly in the wrong way. Excuse me. So let's get started here by showing you how to share the work. In order to share your work, head to iamcladi.com/reworkit and click on the blue button in order to open the form. And all we need is your email, your Behance profile, so we can show off you and your work, and of course a data consent agree. Let us know which app have you used, and if you use more than one, that's absolutely fine. Just tick all the boxes, as many boxes you need. And if you have any specific question that you want to discuss regarding the project that you're submitting, or simply if you want to show off, that's completely cool. And something that I always invite everyone to say to think about is that doesn't have to be like the best pieces or your top artwork. That can be a work in progress. It can be something that you're not happy with, because we're here to learn together. I'm going to say this probably for the millionth time. Adobe Live is a safe space where we learn together, and Jesus and I are here to give you our tips and our opinions. So simply click on add your file. You'll be able to browse your computer in order to submit your file, then click on submit, and that's it. I think we're gonna get started with Jesus.
Yeah.
If you're ready, I can jump into your screen.
Oh, you know what? Do you have the Patrick's uh Behance up? Because if you don't, I need to find
I
it.
don't, but you can start with his work, and in the meantime I can pull that
Oh,
up
you
and
can
then
find it, and then
yeah,
maybe you can switch over. That sounds
absolutely.
great.
So at the
All
moment
right.
we are seeing your screen.
Fantastic. So this is the image that Patrick Nepal, and yeah, Patrick, I believe is his name. Yeah, Patrick Nepal sent in, and it's a really cool movie poster like composite, and it's really good. But there's a couple of things that I think he could improve just to make it better and also work more efficiently. I'm looking at the image here, and I can already see that he's working non-destructively, which is not always a good thing. Number one, it's my assumption that the background image is not the original background image. In other words, it was blurred. And the reason that I can tell this is not like a real, blurred image is because if you zoom in, you'll see that there's no noise. So if this was really an image that was shot with a shallow depth of field, you would still be able to see some noise in the image, just some regular noise that the camera would capture even with a blurry background. So my assumption is that he blurred the background, and also I can tell this is not just a regular background layer. It says layer 0, and it looks like it's been locked. So you can see I click on the lock, and is this lock here? That's the one that he enabled. So that leads me to believe that the image was blurred and not originally shot like this. Maybe even color graded in some way. By either him, or if this is a stock photo by whoever the original artist is. But the point that I'm trying to make is that try to work non-destructively as much as possible, because maybe if the blur is too intense, you might want to be able to bring it back a bit. So that's issue number 1 that I see with this image. Issue number 2 is with the foreground element. You can see that his background was literally cut out. It wasn't masked out. So we have a lot of imperfections here on the mask. See that? The mask is not very good. It looks okay at you know, when you zoom it to you fit it to screen, but if you zoom it to 100%, you can actually see that the edges are pretty jagged. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. And the way to, I mean, there's a lot of different ways of doing that, but the point is now that the pixels have been deleted from the background, we really can't do anything about it. We can't bring pixels back. So if we wanted to fix these issues, what we need to do is create a layer mask and literally just, you know, paint into the suit, which may or may not work depending on the details of the image that you're working on. But you might want to avoid this issue by simply using a layer mask and not deleting the pixels. And something that I'm doing here, in case you don't know, if you click once and then hold shift and click again, Photoshop draws a straight line in between those 2 points. So that's sort of what I was doing there. I was clicking and then painting this straight line just to smooth out the edges. And I'm not going to do it over the entire composite, but that's something that I would definitely do to fix the edges. But again, I would do it on a layer mask to begin with, and not delete the pixels. So you never really want to delete pixels, because if you make a mistake, you want to be able to bring those pixels back. So very, very important. And it looks like the Behance page is up in the chat. So let me bring it up and I'll show that now.
I shared that with our amazing team. So
there we go, Tim.
I thought that.
So much. Yeah, thank you so much, Kladi and Tim. And this is the artist, Pratik Nepal. And he is from Nepal, and you can see his work here. Make sure that you follow him. Thank you so much.
Very talented.
Yeah, thank you so much for submitting your work. I can definitely tell that you have the eye, Patrick, but I think you need to work a little bit more on these little details. But anyway, so that was one of the biggest issues, the layer masking and making sure that the background image, you know, you could have converted it into a smart object or something like that to apply the blur. Or maybe this was an image that you found and it was already blurred by whoever the artist is, and I get that as well. But, you know, I'm assuming that this image was blurred by you, but maybe it wasn't. But the image was in fact blurred. That I'm pretty sure of. Next, you have a couple of folders here to apply the color grade or the matching of the lighting in the scene. And I think you did a fairly good job, but I think we can definitely improve on it. And one of the ways that we can improve on it is by using this technique. I think I might have used it on this show a couple of times. So let me see. You can go and create a solid color fill layer and make sure that you have a neutral gray that's about 50%. You don't have to be exact. I'm at 47 and that should work just fine. And what I'm going to do now is change the blending mode to luminosity. That means that we're going to keep the luminosity of this layer, of the 50% gray layer or close to 50% gray layer, and then take the hue and saturation from the layer below. So it's essentially going to flatten the image so that the colors are the ones that are showing up, and that'll help us better see the colors that are in the composite. And you can create a hue and saturation adjustment layer and crank up the saturation so you can really see the colors in the image. I'm going to put these two into a group, select them both, Control G on Windows, Command G on the Mac to put them into a group, and I'll just call this check layer, just so we know this is a, or rather check group, not layer, but whatever. So we have this check layer that lets us see the colors that are actually found in the image. And as you can see, there's like a color grade on the foreground image that was, again, I'm assuming made by the either by Patrick or the original artist or whoever added the color grade, but there is definitely a color grade in this image, and you can see there's a lot of blues in the suit, but there's not necessarily that same blue on the background, so that necessarily wouldn't happen in the real world. So what you can do is you can create a selective color adjustment layer, clip it to the layer below by clicking on this icon. A clipping mask simply means that the layer below controls the visibility and the layer on top. In this case, that means that the color or the selective color adjustment layer will only affect the model and not the background, which is what you want. So if you make an adjustment, see, it just affects him. So basically what you want to do at this point is go into the neutrals and adjust the image so that it matches the background a little better. And you don't want to you want to have a you don't want to be heavy-handed on here. I'll disable this so you can see what I'm doing. See that before and after? See how I'm just sort of changing the tone or the color that is found in the foreground so that it matches the background a little better. And you can also go into the blues and maybe even adjust it further because there was a lot of blue in that suit. So I can just adjust it so that it matches the background a little better. See that before and after. See that I'm just trying to make it look more like this teal greenish look. And you can keep adjusting it accordingly, even without the check layer, so you can actually see what you're doing. In this case, I may even add a little bit more cyan just to bring in more into the teals. So again, before and after. I affected his skin tone and I really don't like that too much. So I can go into the reds because that's where we have a lot of the skin tones, and I can reduce the cyan, increase the magenta, increase the yellow, and that sort of helps me fix these skin tones. They're still a little bit on the greenish yellow side, but that's okay because again, I'm trying to fit them into this scene. Notice that in this particular image or this particular version of the image, there's a slight blue tint all over him. And again, that really wouldn't happen in a real photo. And of course, you can spend more time fine tuning it, but I think that this is probably good enough, at least for now. We may come back and fine tune it a little more in a moment. What I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about the light sources in this image. We have at least two primary light sources. They're back here. And I'm also looking at the foreground. Let me just disable him so you can see what I'm talking about.
So sorry, I just want to stop you a second because I just want to say people are loving what you're doing. You're doing you're going and with a wonderful flow here, but I just want to acknowledge all the amazing people in the chat that they're sending you love and comments since we usually interact with them, but I didn't want to interrupt you before, so I just took a moment right now to say everyone is loving it. Clarissa is saying that's amazing, and please keep going. We're just loving what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Clarissa. And anyway, I was saying that I'm looking at the light sources, and from what I can see here, it looks like we have this light source here, and then these lights here as well. But I'm noticing that where he's standing, there doesn't seem to be a light source right here. In other words, he's not standing under a light, like maybe if he was standing here and here, the lighting on the, you can sort of see the lighting on the ground is different. It's much darker here. So I'm assuming that there's no light source directly above him or just in front of him. Maybe further down the street there is, but not directly below or, just in front. So that would mean that some of the lighting that Patrick used in this example wouldn't necessarily work. Let me put the check group at the very top here. And by the way, here's a trick for you guys that don't know. You can hold the control key on Windows, the command key on the Mac, and use the bracket keys, and you can move the layers up and down. See that? See? I'm just moving the group really quickly. And if you hold Shift, so Control, Shift, and the right bracket key, you'll move the currently selected layer or group all the way to the top of the layer stack. So it's like a super quick way of moving things up and down the layer stack. But anyway, so if you notice, he's got these layers that are creating these color. They're placing color over the image, and it's not bad. It's actually okay, but I don't think that the light would affect the model the same way. There's way too much color, but not enough light, if that makes any sense. So what I would do, and there's so many ways of doing this, by the way, but I'm just gonna do like something that I think would work well and not make it too complicated for this image, especially with the time that we have. But one of the things that you can do is make sure that you have your selective color layer applied to your model there as a clipping mask, and also the exposure adjustment layer. There's with a layer mask, there's 3 ways of creating a clipping mask: by clicking on this icon here, by hovering over between 2 layers and holding Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, or by pressing Control Alt G on Windows, Command Option G on the Mac. So 3 ways, pick your favorite. The point is now that I have my exposure adjustment layer, and actually, you know what? I'll bring the exposure adjustment layer below the selective color adjustment layer, so then I can apply the brightness first and then the color on top of that. And I'm just going to
And
increase the exposure.
And we
Yeah.
have a question. So Carol is asking that she's saying, in her experience, I don't think I ever use it. What's the difference between selective and other color adjustments?
Yeah, so the selective color adjustment layer is really cool because it allows you to apply a color to a color. And I know that sounds super weird, but let me show you an example of that. So I'm just going to create a new selective color adjustment layer. So there it is, and I can select the color. So, I can select, for example, blacks, right? So now I'm targeting the black. So when I increase the cyan, or decrease it is probably a better example. If I decrease it, you'll notice that the area, the pixels that were black are now red. The opposite of red, the opposite of cyan is red. And if you forget that, you can create a color balance adjustment layer, and Photoshop does a much better job in representing that relationship in this adjustment layer. You can see the labels in the sliders are labeled pretty well. So the opposite of cyan is red, the opposite of magenta is green, the opposite of yellow is blue, or vice versa. And that's what you're doing with the selective color adjustment layer. See that? We have the same sliders really, but you don't see the other color on the opposite side. So you kind of have to remember that. So when I reduce cyan, I get red. So I'm applying, in this case, red to the blacks, which is the shadows. Earlier, I was talking about adjusting the reds because that's where most skin tones are found. Even the ethnicity or complexion really doesn't matter. Reds or yellows, depending on the lighting in the scene, but mostly reds. And notice how now I can just adjust, the red in the image. So it's a good way of selecting a specific color or a range of colors and then applying or subtracting colors that would give you a different result, as you can see here. See that? See how I'm just adjusting the skin tones just because I'm selecting the reds, and of course I can make them brighter or darker and adjust them accordingly. So in short, the selective color adjustment layer is a way of applying colors to colors. So you selectively apply a color to a color. I hope that made sense.
I'm actually, and Carol said, "Oh my God, that makes sense. Thanks." So that was, I think, one great explanation. In the meantime, I'm actually researching because someone in the chat, Christine, said, "Is that it's basically we're looking at the model, and we're looking. It looks like I was actually double checking a Greek chef. So." I'm not 100%. It kind of looked like him. I understand why you probably think that that's the same person, but we don't have any detail from the application. I was also looking at Pratik email, and there is no explanation and there is no details regarding the model. So could be not. It also reminds me of a movie, John Wick. It's called are called the movies. I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, I mean that is a movie. I don't know.
Doesn't the image
because
remind you
there's,
of the movie, like the
I
kind of
guess, because there's
cinematic effect? And
a guy wearing a suit in New York. I mean, I guess.
I'll say the blue and the reds, because usually cinematic is
Yeah, I
more
mean,
orangey. I think that particular movie had a lot of red into it
I
as well.
don't recall exactly, but yeah, wouldn't be surprised.
So we don't
Um,
know.
yeah. But anyway, we're going to now work with the exposure adjustment layer that I placed below the selective color adjustment layer above the model layer, and I cranked up the exposure like so. Look at this, making them super dark and super bright. But what I'm really doing is I'm going to try to create the rim lighting that this particular light here in the left will create. And, I can come back and adjust it later, but this is fine for now. I'll select the mask, click on invert, and it makes a black layer mask, which hides all the pixels in this layer. And then I can select the brush tool, and I can paint with white to reveal those pixels on that layer mask. And I'm just going to, zoom in here and be careful, as careful as I can. I'm not going to do it with my Wacom, but I have one right here, a tablet. So if you have a tablet, this is probably easier, but I'll do it with the mouse for this example, just to show you that it can be done with the mouse. And all I'm going to do is just paint on the edges here like so, and I'm using that same technique I showed you earlier about holding the shift key. And I'm just gonna try to imagine what that light hitting his body would look like. You know, maybe something like this. And there we go. And that's because that light behind them would definitely reflect on his body. And you know what? I think I made it too narrow. I might want a thicker light. So I'm going to increase my brush by tapping on the right bracket key. And again, I'm going to just paint on his shoulder like so. And also, you know what? I didn't get his ear, so I'm going to get a little bit of his ear here. Just a tiny bit, a little bit
That
of the
detail
hair.
makes such a difference, Jesus. It's looking so great.
So before and after, thank you. Before and after, you can see the difference. Now, I don't think that this, well, first of all, that light is red, so it wouldn't create such a strong highlight. And also, it's further away up higher, so I don't necessarily think it would hit too much of his body here. So that's why I'm focusing on this light source here on the left, since it's much brighter and closer to him. So that's what I would do. You know what? I just thought about something that I didn't mention earlier, is that I don't necessarily think that this is the right perspective. You have to think about where the camera was, how high off the ground, the angle and all that. And I don't think this is the best perspective for this image. I actually think that the perspective will probably be better suited right about there. But you know, then we don't have anything down here to work with. So I'm not going to worry about it, but I did want to mention that the perspective was probably off. Um, but anyway, so now that I've got this rim light right here, what I could do is work with the layers that you have here, Pratik, and I don't know if he's in the chat, but I think
I
you,
don't think his.
yeah, I think you did a good job here on a couple of things. Like this shadow right here in the bottom, I think is fantastic. I think it works well. I would probably reduce the opacity just a little bit, but I think it's good that you have that shadow there. And then you have this layer with these lights, and I think they work okay. My only issue is that you probably wouldn't get so much red because again, the light source is behind them, so you really wouldn't get it in front of his face. And the only way that you would have that much red on him is if there was another light source like really close to him. And I don't think that's the case in this image. So I think this light looks a little off and unnatural on the right hand side. So I'm going to create a layer mask and just paint with black and then just try to reduce that a little bit, and maybe not completely because I kind of like it, but not, you know, not that extreme. So once I paint, I'm going to go into edit, fade brush tool, and reduce that brush stroke just a little bit so that it's kind of there, but not as strong as you had it before. And I think that works a little better. Also, this layer here, you had a strong blue, you know, color fill here that I don't necessarily think it would work well in this case. And actually, I wouldn't put this in a separate layer. I would actually put this one with the rest of these layers down here and clip it to the layer below. I'll fill with black again, and I would just make it more of like a general brush stroke, meaning like it's not as noticeable as you had it before, and I think that may work better.
And
And
talking
like
of
the
brushes, Carol is asking, what is the soften of your brush? Fairy is saying 0% hardness. Just want to double check with you.
What is the softness of your brush? Well, I'll explain what that is. Yeah, so I'll make my brush white, and what I mean by soft is when I paint. Where am I painting? I don't even know where I'm painting. Let me just create a new document because I think it'll be much easier to see. So in this new document, I'm going to fill the background with white, create a new layer, and then I have a soft brush right now, and I'll explain what that is. So soft brush here, and then notice that the hardness is set to 0. Now I'm going to do a hard brush, and I'm going to paint. So see that? See how this one is very soft around the edges, and this one's very sharp. And by the way, the reason I'm getting that jagged effect is because I have my spacing set to 25%, but if I reduce it down to 1%, when I paint again, and I'll undo that, you'll see now that it's smooth, but it's still a sharp edge. So that's the difference when I talk about soft and hard when it comes to brushes. So in this case, I wanted to paint with a soft edge so that I don't see any sharp edges when I'm painting that color. Also, another way of doing this is by using a keyboard shortcut. So you can use the shift bracket key on the keyboard. And if you press on the shift right bracket, you'll create a hard brush. If you press on the shift and left bracket key, you'll reduce the brush hardness. So you can use that to adjust your brush hardness.
Fantastic,
Cool.
thank you. I think that they wanted to know exactly the settings that you were using.
Yeah, no problem. So next I got the lighting. See that? I think it's much more of a subtle effect, but I still think it brings a little bit of that light in there. Again, the light is behind him, so I don't think there'll be so much of that blue in front of him. What I would do at this point is, just see what else he's got here. And you know what? I don't necessarily think this is a bad color grade here, but this is at least not the way that I would do it. So I'll disable it. And the way that I would do it is either by putting everything into a smart object, or if I'm working with a complex composite, or like on a laptop where I don't have too much, video RAM, I wouldn't put it in a smart object. Instead, I would just press Control Shift E, Command Option Shift E on the Mac. I'll call this layer Final, and I'll convert it into a smart object. That way I can replace the contents and the edits I'm about to do at a later point if I need to. Then I'm going to go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And from the Camera Raw Filter, I can just apply other adjustments. I'll start by maybe making the image a little bit cooler and maybe increasing the contrast, adjusting the highlights a little bit so that they're not so bright. Shadows as well, bring them out a bit, and increase the texture because I really want to see that suit pop. You see, you can see that when I'm adjusting the texture, that his suit and his face pop a little bit, which is okay in this case. I want him to look kind of gritty. I can also increase the vibrance, which is increasing saturation, but it protects already saturated pixels and skin tones. And I'm also going to go into the detail panel, and from here I can increase the sharpening to obviously sharpen the image. And when you sharpen, you always want to view the image at 100%. Any other view may be a little misleading. So at 100%, you can really see, how the sharpening effect is applying the image, is affecting the image. And you can also hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click on the masking slider. By default, Photoshop will apply the sharpening effect to the entire image. But if you drag the masking to the right while holding Alt, you'll see that Photoshop will start finding the edges. So the areas that are in black will not be affected by this sharpening effect. So I really want to just contain the sharpening effect to him and not really like the sky and these other areas back here. So I'll fit this in view. And what I'll do now is go into the effects, and I can add a vignette just to center him more in frame. Also, if you add a vignette, make sure that you increase the highlights in a composite like this one, because I really want the highlights to pop through the vignette. See that? See how when the highlight here on the bottom right is probably the best example. If I drag the highlights slider to the right, it just makes those highlights pop out a little bit, and that's what I want. So then I can adjust this accordingly just to create the vignette, but I don't want to lose the highlights. And I'll again zoom in and add just a little bit of grain, maybe 10, maybe even more in this case.
Those I would say are the last Jesús Ramirez final touch, signature touches.
Exactly. One thing that I'll do that I kind of skipped over is I'm going to go into the shadows, and I'm going to click and drag and just add a little bit of cyan. I'm trying to match this cyan color here as best as I can. So, you can drag this and then just add a little bit of cyan, just a tiny little bit, just a subtle effect of that cyan. It's actually maybe too strong, so I'll even reduce it down even further, but I think you get the idea. Just a tiny little hint of cyan. And in some cases, you may want to go into calibration and adjust your red, green, blue primaries. So in this example, for example, I can adjust you see how I'm adjusting the hue of the reds? You were talking about making it more orange earlier, Kladi, so I can do that from here. And then just adjust, the different hues just to sort of change the tint a little bit, the color that is over the image, increase the saturation and so forth. I'll press OK. And there it is. Let me do the before and after comparison. Yeah, so I'm going to go into Window, History, click on this little camera to create my snapshot. And we can see, I'll move it over so we can see. So this is the original image, and this is the edited version. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you like the original one better. Let me know if you think I missed something. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I didn't have time to go into the details, but it is time for Kladi to show us a little bit, a little something in Illustrator, I believe.
Yes, we're going to do a little Illustrator. Also, we're going to touch some InDesign today. But thank you so much, Jesus. I think he made it in exactly, Christian, exactly what Christine is saying. So many subtle touches, starting to think about, correct. There are very subtle touches that you added there, but they make a huge difference. And I think that that's where you really start to feel the professional touch on a production or an image in this case. So thank you so much, Jesus. That was really, really amazing.
You're
And
welcome.
also,
And I'm noticing a question in the chat, and I'm looking for a video here so I can share it with you because and I'm not looking at the chat now, but the person said, and that's why I'm saying I didn't get to read the person's name, but they're saying that you can create drawings from Camera
yes,
Raw,
yes, I saw that
and the
question.
answer is yes, you can. And let me.
Umacorn, we're talking about your comment on the chat. Wow, I guess you can create a drawing effect with the Camera Raw filter.
You can, and I have a video on that on my YouTube channel. So this was all, well, not necessarily with just the camera raw, but that was made from a photo, and I'm not going to play the whole thing now, but you know, I took that photo and made it into a comic book drawing using a bunch of filters, including the camera raw filter. So you might want to check that out. I'll place the link in the chat, but the video is called Smart Way to Quickly Make Comic Book Drawings from Your Photos in Photoshop, and you can search for that on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll find it. But I'm also placing the link in the chat now so that you can watch that later if you want.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And in the meantime, I want to say hi to General Kenobi, Frank Baum, and Noor, Sean, Andrea Soler, everyone that I didn't have the chance to say hi before because I saw you joining while Jesus was working. But of course, Carol Ferry here already from the beginning, and Michelle. Thank you so much, everybody, and keep asking questions. That's the beauty of the comments and using the chat here on Behance so we can reply to your questions and get to learn how to do more things together. So before we jump into my screen, I should have had the artist already there, and he's actually, should be, yeah. Here it is. So I'm actually gonna switch into my screen, Asus, if you are done with your...
Yeah.
Fantastic. So here we go. So that's so nice. I can already see that Lance Oppenheimer, which we already were showing off yesterday, has updated his profile, and that's super cool because it looks like he's already took in and implemented some of the work that we've done yesterday. And what I realized, and I also had some comment on my Instagram, is that I promised a lot of things to show today regarding that project. But the whole point, because I was doing it in my own time, and then I thought, what is the point of me doing it by myself and then just sort of show off the result? The beauty is to share with you the techniques and the process that I use, and I think that we can keep going and use this wonderful project since I introduced it yesterday. And of course, you can use it with any other projects that you have, and I look forward to see more Illustrator and InDesign. So I'm taking this time to give you a shout out and remind you to please share InDesign and Illustrator files for rework it. But we can go ahead and start to have a look at how Lens can really push this branding further. So first of all, he's already started to use different elements of the illustration, and I'm going to jump into the illustration real quick so you can start to see.
By the way, Kladi, sorry for interrupting, but Baldir's grandmother is in the chat.
Oh, so that would be my mom?
Yeah, your mom.
Oh, that's so silly. Hi, and you need to tell her, Valdeir, you need to tell us her name so I can say hi to her. I already say hi to your mom yesterday, and I'm very happy. And just for you, for those of you who weren't here with us yesterday, the reason of all this silliness is that we did find out that Valdeir's mom and myself have the same birthday, so we just kind of assumed that I was Valdeir's mother. And talking of mother, my mom is in the chat. That's starting to get convoluted.
That's what I was talking about, Baldir's grandmother.
Oh!
Not his actual grandmother. How would I know who his grandmother is?
Oh my god, I didn't get that. Well, you want to say hi to her? I'm sure she's here to appreciate some Italian hello.
Oh, ciao, Juliana.
Right, fantastic. So that's funny. I didn't get that at the beginning. Now she's gonna get worried hearing me talking about son that she's not aware of. Right. So this is Lance Oppenheimer, and his Behance is Roy Shilho. Is from Israel. And you can go ahead and have a look at his profile there. But today I'm going to give some more tips and techniques in order to really push this work further. And I'm going to start by opening Illustrator so we can have a look at the design that we were working with yesterday. But most importantly, I want to jump real quick back in the browser to show you some other things that I was mentioning yesterday. So if you head into my website, there is a banner at the very top, or also a pop-up should be there still, in order to access the branding bundle. And the reason why I really want to focus on this particular project is because it was a personal branding, and I think that that's very important for everyone who's a designer, photographer, anyone who's there to communicate what they do, and of course they are have to do anything visual. I think it's important that you really nail down your visual, and you're just trying to find a way to make them intriguing. Fantastic. So again, if you head to iamkladi.com/branding bundle, you'll be able to input your email and receive the branding bundle, which consists of different documents. I'm just going to run real quick through the other one that we're not going to look today, and then I'm going to open the InDesign template. You have a PDF glossary with all the information about branding. I also added a general a contract so you can secure your payments for when you work, because that's important, and the brand platform, which is the very basic for when you start a branding, and then you start mood board development. Today, because we're already at the stage in which the logo was developed, we can focus on the logo development and the comparative stage and presentation, end-to-end mock-up. So that's exactly is what I'm going to be focusing on today. And in fact, I already have the presentation one open into InDesign. And as you can see, this is how the template works. And by the way, just so you are aware, I'm gonna try find the folder here. I'm gonna zoom in. The files, and I had some questions in the email, so I want to specify that as well. How come that the file is at INDT? So that T that you usually don't see next to a file extension stands for template. What that means is that every time that we're going to click on that file, and by the way, you can add that manually as well, and you can do that as well with a Photoshop file or with an Illustrator file. Just simply add a T at the end of the extension, will allow to create a new file from scratch all the time. So you never modify the actual template, but you can open a new file. And in fact, as you see, once I went and opened the file in InDesign, it opened as an untitled. So now I'm going to have to go ahead and save this file, because this is a brand new file that's been generated by the template there. So before we start, I'm going to go ahead and press Command S in order to save this file. And I'm going to call it Lens, just so we have a reference of what we're working on, and place it on my desktop and click on Save. So remember, whenever you work with a template, and now as you can see, the file that I'm working with is a INDD, which is an InDesign file, is different from the template. So this is going to be a unique file, and if I ever open this again, whatever change I'm going to make and save, those are going to stay. So when I'm going to open it back, I'm not going to be able to go backwards in time. While with the template, you can start fresh anytime you want. Right, and the reason why I wanted to show you this template is because that's a way in which you can start to really present your logo. So I'm going to head back into the Illustrator file, and I'm actually going to leverage our amazing libraries that allow us to work in a very flexible way cross-app. In this case, I'm going to create a new library dedicated to Lens. I'm going to call it Lens O, so I know exactly what the person is, and I'm going to click on Create. Now there are a few things that I can perform here. I can start by simply dragging the main feature, which is perhaps the face and lens. I'm not saying that that's have to be your final. This is my reworking option. You can use the same tips, and anybody can use the same tips with your graphics. So of course I'm just working with what I have here. So all you have to do simply is to click and drag the artwork inside the library, and as you can see, the artwork will land there as well, and we did the same for the business card. Now in this case, when we were working with the business card, first of all, I noticed that there was a little issue with the little rainbow. So in order to fix that, we can it looks like he's applied some sort of a wiggle to it, because you can tell that the original shape was a line but then the line has been modified. So maybe there is a mesh. I'm not entirely sure because I wasn't there through the process. But the way in which we can access this shape is now to expand this new shape that's been created from the original curves. And in order to do that, all we have to do is to select this shape and add to the object menu, and then go ahead and expand appearance. And as you can see, the outline of the circle will disappear. If we go from a preview, which we're looking at right now, into an outline view by pressing Command Y, you see that we don't have the curves anymore, but we have this wiggle line appearing. And again, press Command Y, which is Control Y if you're working on a PC, in order to go back into the preview mode. This would allow us to interact with the actual vector points that are part of this shape. In order to pick these vector points one by one, we're going to use the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow located just below the black arrow inside the toolbar, or you can simply press the letter A in your keyboard in order to activate the direct selection tool. And as you can see, all the different anchor points, which are these little blue squares that are sit on top of our shapes, will come up. And I'm going to really zoom in so you can see them, because they're tiny, but they're there. And that will allow us to clean up, especially over here where it looks like, you know, is really going under the shape and creating all this less harmonious sort of curve. So what I'm going to do here is simply click once over the vector that I want, anchor point, sorry, that I want to move, and I can just simply drag it around with my direct selection tool in order to have a little bit of more more control on the actual shape. So you can go ahead and select one at a time, or even multiple points by simply clicking on one, holding shift, and then selecting the others. It still looks that that bit is not as smooth as the other one, and therefore we're going to jump into the smooth tool, which will allow us in just one click to make the line much smoother. In order to jump into the smooth tool, we first have to select the entire shape, because otherwise we just have this single anchor point selected. So I'm going to press V in order to activate our black arrow, which is our general selection tool. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the three dots at the bottom of the toolbar in order to access the top flyout menu, and then select Advanced. This will allow you to display a larger number of tools inside your toolbar. And as you can see, we still have the pencil tool, and if you click and hold on the pencil tool, then the smooth tool will make an appearance under the hidden tools. And now that we have our smooth tool selected, we can go ahead and start to just simply, it will be even more ideal if, as this was mentioned before, whatever you do, some sort of drawing, if you have a Wacom tablet and you use a pen. I don't even have a mouse at the moment, unfortunately. I left it outside my studio, so I'm literally using a trackpad of a laptop. You can just go over the line, and as you can see, just by simply moving it around is already changing, first of all, the number of anchor points, but also their distribution on the line, and that will create much smoother effect and less corner points. So it's definitely adapting more this shape to the one that are above. All I'm left to do now is to swap back real quick into my direct selection tool and sort of try to give it a little bit more of consistency to the shape. So I'm just gonna make sure that I cover also the other colors. So we have this rainbow, which is now fitting and a little bit more consistent. So it looks like the blue has to come down in order to cover the orange, just like so, and same for the orange over the cyan. So as you can see, in just few clicks, we really refined that shape, which was lovely. Again, love the pastel color. It just gives us a feel of what your general approach to design is. General Kenobi say trackpad so uncivilized. I agree. Yeah. So Nancia, what are we making? We're making, in this case, those were business card, but we are reworking the visual identity and branding of Lance Oppenheimer, which has kindly submitted his work. Right, so the idea was to have these different graphics jumping into the business cards. So what I'm going to do here to make sure that we have two different images that have that and we can pretty much break I will call it rainbow because it's got a shape of a rainbow. the rainbow that it is in both side of the business card. What I'm going to do first is use the selection tool and select the rainbow shape and press Command C to copy it, so I can save it, or you can just simply drag it by holding Option or Alt on Windows, and you can create a copy just like so. I want to press Command C just because then I want to paste it in place, so I think that would be the safer option. And once you're done with your business card design, what I'm going to do is press the letter M in order to create and activate the rectangle tool. You can also find the rectangle tool on the toolbar, and then I'm going to click and drag in order to go over the artboard and create a rectangle, which is exactly the same size of the artboard. And once I do that, make sure that the artboard, that rectangle sits on top of your graphics, because what I'm going to do now is click and drag over the rectangle tool and whatever graphics were below, and by using the shortcut Command 7, that's Control 7 on a Mac, I just created a clipping mask and cropped all the graphics that were sitting on the artboard within the shape of the rectangle. That will allow me now to simply click and drag the shape inside my library. Boom, and here it is. We already got the front of our business card. Then I'm going to press Command F to paste in place, and it looks like, oops, yeah. So I'm gonna I had a oops moment, but that's fantastic because I can show you why that happened. So as you can see now, I have this artboard selected, while the first artboard that was selected, whenever you paste in place, is very important that you know which artboard you have selected. So clearly, if I select this current artboard, the rainbow get placed to the left side. So that means that if I select this other artboard, it gets selected in the same place where it was originally. So remember, whenever you copy an element, if you want to paste it in place, you must select the same artboard that you have used whenever you copy the element. I hope that makes sense. As if didn't, you can help me to find a better way of defining that. But you know, that's the most important thing is that we were trying to make sure that exactly follow in the same place. And the reason why is because we want to create this effect with the business card that they are complementary. So we have the design that goes from the top to the back, and I'm going to go back and create another rectangle here and do the same trick. Just simply bring it over the artboard, and it doesn't matter what color the rectangle is. All you want to do is to make sure that you really zoom in so you go over the artboard, so you can take all the entire space which is filled with your design. And again, click and drag to select the top and the bottom layer, and press Command 7 or Control 7 to create another clipping mask and drag it inside your libraries. Now I'm going to jump into Photoshop, and by clicking on Create New, I know I got like a few minutes, I really hope I can do that fast. You can now start to download any of the business card templates, or you can create your own. Again, I'm going to try to go ahead and select one that I already downloaded. Hopefully we can open that up. You can also access stock.adobe.com in order to download your very own mockup. Let's see if this one opens up real quick, because we got very few minutes. Here we go. We managed to open this mockup. The beauty of downloading a mockup directly from Adobe Stock is that all the work is done for you. Pretty much all you have to do is to head into where it says objects, and under design, of course, each file is going to be different. So in this case, I'm looking at the business card, and oops, looks like just going to expand my layers panel so we can read what it says here. So what we want to do is to look for a smart object where it says place your design here. You up design here. That's usually what it says in the majority of the mockup file that you can find online. And then I'm going to head into my window menu to open my libraries, and from here I'm going to search my lens libraries, and I'm going to simply drag inside the front of the business card. Now it looks like the size is different. Of course, I wasn't planning exactly on which particular mockup to use. So what you can do in this case is just to fill the rest of the background with the same blue. In order to do so, you can create another adjustment layer, select solid color, and then click on OK, and you can paste it below. Jesus, I'm sure that you were going to be much faster in doing that. So we're going to place the layer below, and then from the color, just press the letter I in order to access the eyedropper tool. And we can actually select the color of the background here and apply it to our color background. So now we have this first card done, and then press on save and it will be replaced and on the side. And then you can do the same on the other side of the business card. Jesus, tell me how many minutes do I have, because I know that time
You
is...
have like 2.5 minutes.
Fantastic. So if you now go ahead and create another solid color background, it just retains the same color, which is great. It was a great help. So all we have to do now is to go back and open our libraries, which I've lost somewhere in here. Fantastic. And we can place the back of the business card. And as you can see, the background color is going to fill in any space that we don't have. And once you save, you can see that we have our business cards there, and the design is now complementary. We have one side of the rainbow on the other side where the details are. We have the other side of the rainbow. Now, the beauty of creating this sort of design is that they really grab the attention of whoever is looking at your design, and you can really, and I'm just going to use this Adobe Live coasters to give you an idea, but you can literally start to flip, and just by giving that experience of flipping a card and like, oh, is that the same design that goes around? You build an experience which is going to create a memory. So your business card is going to make the difference. And of course, it doesn't have to be a rainbow. It can be anything, it can be your name, but that's a way of using elements and graphics, thinking outside the box to create an experience when you create your marketing material. And also by creating this sort of mock-up, you can create a wonderful project for your Behance pages. Just real quick before we say goodbye, I wanted to show a project that I found that is worth showing from Asem Kamashesh. I'm going to paste it into the chat. Hashem has created this beautiful project in which he talks about the presentation area for 2020 for Behance. So you have all the exact dimension there to create your perfect presentation files for portfolio for Behance. I'm going to place that in the chat. Here it is. So you can have access to it if you're looking to build a mockup, then you can share it with everybody on Behance in your profile. And I think that's it for this week. Jesus, thank you so much. Time went so fast.
Yeah, that was really quick, and good job there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. And don't forget to join Rework It with your artwork. I see so many. Michelle, have you submitted your work? Baldair, team, I'm just gonna Biola, I know you did submit yours. And oh, Roy is in the chat. Fantastic. I didn't see that he was there, but I can recognize your brand, of course. Fantastic. Really, really nice. Sean, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, we're gonna see you pretty soon. We're gonna be back with Rework It, so keep submitting your work. Don't forget to follow Jesus at JR from PTC and the Photoshop training channel. Jesus, you want to say where is the best place to follow you?
Yeah, Photoshop training channel on YouTube or Behance. You can follow me here on Behance, and my links to everything is there. So make sure that you click on both our Behance profiles and follow us there. And I think I speak for you too, Kladi, when I say that your links are also in your Behance profile.
Yes, and in particular, something that I'm really where I'm much more responsive is my Instagram. So you can add at I am Kladi and give me a follow there. And if you have any questions, I usually reply within a day or so. So that's a place where you can find also more tips in Illustrator. Thank you so much for everybody. Thank you, team. Frank, Ferry, Sean, Raji, of course, for submitting. We look forward to your works in order to rework it here at Adobe Live.
All right, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Stay tuned for more fun. Bye, everybody.